After the battle of the twin gods at Jiaoling Pass, Su Yan came to the Douluo continent. He wanted to uphold fairness and justice and tear off the masks of those hypocritical people. The first trial target. Tang San. Keywords of the novel. Adventure in Douluo continent, opening trial of Tang San without pop-up window, adventure in Douluo continent, opening trial of Tang San. Download the complete text, Adventure in Douluo continent, opening trial of Tang San. Read the latest chapters. Chapter 1, Su Yan, I am the God of Order. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1, Su Yan, I am the God of Order. After the battle of the two gods, Douluo continent was peaceful. Sea God Tang San gently looked up and looked at the sky with satisfaction. Finally, all of this had come to an end. I have saved Douluo continent and the world. The god of Rakshasa, Bibi Dong, has already died. She died in her own hands. I am a hero. Cleaning the battlefield, everyone is extremely busy. His Royal Highness, may I ask how to deal with the rebels in the Martial Soul Hall? A general dressed in armor approached to inquire. What's the use of keeping them? Kill them. Tang San turned around and looked at the general, his eyes indifferent, and said fiercely. Isn't this too cruel? After all, many are just ordinary soldiers, they. General pleads for mercy. Tang San immediately shouted angrily, shut up. I said kill, didn't you hear me? Yes. Yes. The general was helpless and dared not continue, so he had to obey orders. Ah! At that moment, tears and curses mixed together, and blood flowed into a river, flowing through everyone's feet. Many soldiers in Tiandou couldn't bear the foul smell and vomited one after another. At this moment, another general brought Qian Renxue and Hulaina over and asked Tang San, King Lanhao, what should these two women do? Hulina is only 7 rings, and the position of the angel god of Qian Renxue is shattered, and her strength remains at level 89 for life. I can never cross the level of 90. She, who has just experienced a big war, has disheveled golden hair and a faint blood stain on the corner of her mouth. Keeping it will ultimately be a disaster, kill it. Tang Sanji is ruthless, and the wind is light and the clouds are calm. Tang San, I hate you. Even if I were a ghost, I wouldn't let you go. Tang San, I am willing to transform into a fierce ghost and entangle you for generations. Ha ha ha. From afar, the curses of Hulaina and Qian Renxue could be heard. Quickly, the two of them were crushed to the execution ground, and the two soul saints drew their martial soul long swords, starting and falling. Both of them fell at the same time and fell together. Suddenly, there was a sudden change in heaven and earth, with fierce winds and rain. In the middle of the sky, a space crack appeared. Su Yan descended from the sky, and his majestic voice shook and shouted, the God of Order has descended. You have not yet knelt down. Everyone below is confused. Is this God? Tang San looked up and said, who are you? Have you met the newly appointed Sea God Lord? Why don't you pay homage? Su Yan sneered and said, worship. You, seek death. As soon as she finished speaking, Su Yan raised her hand and pulled out a golden long sword, saying, even a small first-level god dares to act recklessly in front of me. Even a divine king must submit to my feet. Qiankuan, the light of the sword god. Su Yan directly struck with a sword and instantly pierced Tang San's heart, shattering his azure appearance and transforming him back into an ordinary person. The light of the sea god, which Tang San was proud of, became dim because it knew that this person could not be provoked. Even the azure blood, as a god, has turned red again. Tang San felt heartbroken, his divine position seemed to be shattered. Everyone else was surprised, their divine position was shattered, and with just one move, Tang San's sea god divine position was shattered. The leading bird has already been shot, do you still need to remind the rest? No, it's not necessary. Master, Lu Erlong, Shrek 6 monsters and others all knelt down and said, I have seen the God of Order. Su Yen laughed and said, okay, very good. Today, I'm here to uphold fairness and justice. And today, the first culprit is Tang San. Su Yen pointed directly at him, you are an extremely hypocritical person. When you were young, you received the favor of the Martial Soul Hall and received a monthly subsidy of gold soul coins from the branch hall, but ended up destroying the Martial Soul Hall. This is unjust. You have been baptized by the capital of slaughter and obtained the realm of killing gods, but when you change hands, you destroyed the capital of slaughter. This is disloyal. In order to achieve your goals, you are not willing to seduce Hulaina and treat her as your chess piece. You. Shameless. Your crimes are countless and countless. Upon hearing this, Tang San immediately retorted, nonsense. Nonsense. I, Tang San, have always been just, with the responsibility of saving the world and the goal of achieving peace on the mainland. My actions are upright and my path is straight. How could such a thing happen? Tang San's words were unanimously agreed upon by all the military and civilians. Yes, King Lanhao has unparalleled justice. Support King Lanhao. God of Order, do you have any evidence of what you said? Do you? Su Yen smiled and said, evidence. Of course I have it, but there are still important matters in this room. Where does anyone have time to argue with you about these things? So, wait for a moment. After speaking, Su Yen lifted her right hand and grabbed Tang San, then threw him aside and gathered her divine power to make a cage for him. Tang San looked at the cage and kept attacking, hoping to break through and escape. Su Yen smiled and said, don't struggle anymore. With your strength, it's not enough. Damn it, let me out. Let me out. Tang San kept shouting loudly. And Shrek 6 monsters, none of them dared to come forward and plead for Tang San's mercy. Even many people are afraid that Tang San's situation will affect them, thinking about how to draw a clear line with him. I declare that the first person to be tried. Tang San, his public trial will begin in 10 days, and I will definitely give you a satisfactory answer. For every crime he committed, I will provide you with convincing evidence. If he is wronged, I will let Tang San fall. I know what you are thinking, afraid that I will use my strong power to oppress him. No, I won't. Tang San is here, and I won't see him for 10 days. You can rest assured. After Su Yen finished speaking, he came to the front door of the Martial Soul Hall and looked at the scene of blood flowing. He immediately activated his divine power and said, the light of resurrection. The emerald green light representing life keeps flickering, making souls who have reached hell feel the supreme warmth. Qian Renxue said, who is it? It seems that someone is using divine power to save us. After listening, Bibi Dong said, what? Helena said, teacher, it seems to be true. Countless elders and soldiers in the Martial Soul Hall cheered and thanked them non-stop. Tens of thousands of souls returned to the Douluo continent, and Su Yen looked at them drifting ahead. Everyone, listen to me. I am the God of Order, and I am here to make decisions for you. If you have any grievances, just speak up. I, Su Yen, promise to absolutely achieve absolute fairness and justice. Thank you, His Highness Su Yen, to the God of Order. They saluted together. Okay. Su Yen continued to use his divine power and then scattered it towards the position of the troops in the Martial Soul Hall. Reshaping the physical body. Su Yen was finally helping them. Resurrected, resurrected. The Soul Masters and Elders of the Martial Soul Hall have been reborn one after another. Thank you, Your Highness, the God of Order. Everyone cheered once again. The rest are Qian Renxue, Bibi Dong, and Hulaina. Su Yen raised her hand and continued to increase her divine power output. The physical bodies of the three of them slowly repaired, and finally their souls entered. The bodies of 3 people have moved. End of this chapter. Chapter 2, Resurrect. Everyone in the Martial Soul Hall. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2, Resurrect. Everyone in the Martial Soul Hall immediately, the 3 of them opened their eyes and were completely resurrected. After being resurrected, the 3 immediately knelt and saluted, "Thank you, His Highness, the God of Order, for saving us." Su Yan shook her head and said, No need. This time, I'm going to make decisions for you and judge the hypocritical people in the world. In fact, Su Yan is not a person from Douluo continent, but comes from a different world. China, and has read a series of novels from Douluo continent. Later, while secretly watching the movie, he was struck by lightning and his soul pierced through a foreign world. He practiced for half a century and eventually ascended to the sky, becoming the current god of order. Later, in the battle with the god of corruption in the supernatural realm, it was only by chance that I came to this world. Since he has arrived here, Su Yan will be the supreme god of Douluo continent from now on. Bibidong thought for a moment and said, Your Highness Su Yan, I am willing to abdicate the position of the Pope of the Martial Soul Hall to you. Su Yan didn't refuse either. Okay, you guys go down and prepare well. Tomorrow noon, I will hold a grand ceremony to ascend the throne, and make both the Star Luo and the Heavenly Do empires submit to me. By the way, there are also 7 major sects, and they must also submit to my feet. Bibidong thought for a moment and said, Lord Su Yan, this may be a bit difficult. Although I have been resurrected, my soul power has also regressed to level 91 due to being reborn again. I'm afraid I can't deter them. After listening, Su Yan waved her hand and said, It's a small idea. Just notify me, and I'll be responsible for telling them. At this moment, his eyes lit up with anger and he said, Tell them, who should I listen to in the future? Bibidong nodded and said, Yes, Lord Su Yan. Subsequently, the messenger of the Martial Soul Hall flew his sword in all directions. In the imperial palace of the Heavenly Do Empire, Avalanche sat on a golden dragon chair, trembling uncontrollably as he watched the commands in his hand. Upon seeing such an avalanche, national teacher Yu Xiaojiang couldn't help but speak up, Your Majesty, what's wrong with you? Avalanche looked at the message sent by the messenger of the Martial Soul Hall and sat slumped in place, unable to help but hide his face and cry. It's over, it's all over at once. The foundation of our ancestors is about to be destroyed in my hands. Wu, ancestors, fathers, emperors, I apologize to you all. Upon hearing the crying and howling of the Avalanche Emperor, Yu Xiaojiang quickly stepped forward to comfort him, Your Majesty, the matter is not yet settled. Please do not be sad. That so-called Su Yan is just a stronger god. Even if one person cannot defeat him, cannot the people of the entire Douluo continent? The Avalanche handed the message to Yu Xiaojiang and said, National teacher, take a look for yourself. Yu Xiaojiang took it over and, after carefully examining it, angrily punched the nearby stone wall and said, What exactly does Su Yan want to do? He wants to unify the mainland. Damn it, if he can't beat him, I really want to beat him. Avalanche looked at Yu Xiaojiang and quickly asked, National teacher, what should we do now? Should we comply or? The Avalanche didn't finish speaking, but stopped because his first thought was obedience. After all, he endured for many years and wasted such a talented talent, finally waiting to ascend to the throne as emperor. This but hasn't heated up yet, is it about to be kicked out? Once you step down, it will be difficult for you to survive. Yu Xiaojiang quickly stopped and said, No way. Your Majesty, you are the true Dragon Emperor. Why should you listen to others? Avalanche helplessly said, But compared to others, I don't want to die anymore. Yu Xiaojiang came up with an idea. Your Majesty, you don't have to die. Perhaps we still have one chance. My disciple Tang San's lover is Xiao Wu, and she is also a first-level god. Although she shares it with my disciple, she should be able to unleash the power of a third-level god alone. The god's name is Shura God. After hearing this, General Shuilong said, "No way. National teacher, you haven't seen that King Lanhao has been instantly killed by a single move. He can be a level 1C god." Ken Xiaowu, Lord. Yu Xiaojiang waved his hand and quickly explained, No, you don't know. The reason why King Lanhao failed was because he was overworked after the war, and his divine power had been exhausted. It was only when he was ambushed by someone surnamed Su that he became like this. If both sides were in the peak state, it would be difficult to say whether they would win or lose at that time. Even if Tang San couldn't do it, if we added Xiao Wu and the two first-level gods, wouldn't we still have to do with him? When everyone heard the analysis of national teacher Yu Xiaojiang, it seemed that what he said was very reasonable. I see. The national teacher still has wisdom, and we are truly foolish. Yeah, once King Lanhao is well trained, we will directly return to attack. The Martial Soul Hall and others are definitely not opponents. Yes, if we can eliminate them once, we can do it again. Under the stage, the confidence of the soldiers and soul masters greatly increased, and the tense atmosphere eased a lot. The Avalanche asked, National teacher, are you sure there's no problem? Yu Xiaojiang nodded and affirmed, Your Majesty, please rest assured. Our most important task now is to save King Lanhao. Currently, he is trapped in the divine power cage at the entrance of the Martial Soul Hall. That's why. In the Tiandou royal family, everyone discussed the next steps together. In the Star Luo Empire, Emperor Davis sat on the throne. His strength had already surpassed the 8th ring, but he was only around 40 or 50 years old. The future is limitless. It is almost certain to enter the existence of the title Douluo. He also had a command sheet sent by the messenger of the Martial Soul Hall in his hand. Under it stood the civil and military officials of the Star Luo Empire, mainly soul masters, with only a very small number of ordinary humans. Ladies and gentlemen, the messenger of the Martial Soul Hall has already scattered this kind of thing all over the city. Do you have any good ideas? Upon hearing the emperor's inquiry, the next minister stepped out and bowed, Your Majesty, I have an idea to protect Xinglua from harm. Upon hearing this, Davis immediately became interested and said, Please speak, my dear. The old minister said seriously, Surrender. As soon as Davis said this, his face immediately turned black and he was very unhappy. What? Mr. Li, what do you mean by surrender? Lord Li, we will definitely fight for the empire until the last person, vowing to die and not surrender. The remaining courtiers began to complain one after another about Lord Li, who had proposed surrendering. Mr. Li remained calm and turned to ask, I just said surrender, and I believe many people will scold me. But all I want to ask you is, besides surrender, do we have any other way? The others remained silent, and no one spoke. A few seconds later, a general dressed in armor and cultivated in the 6th ring Soul Emperor said, Yes, fight to the death. Even if we die, we cannot lose the backbone of the Star Luo Empire. Death. Do you think I'm afraid of death? Joke, Li Yuan is afraid of death. But where are we? End of this chapter. Chapter 3, Debate 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3, Debate 1. The people below were speechless. If our civil officials and military generals can die, then what about our Star Luo's 30,000 subjects and millions of soldiers? Do we want them to be buried with us? Do we want our Star Luo's 5.4 million vast territory to flow with blood? Li Yuan's words were resounding and powerful. Everyone remained silent. Do you want to ruin the whole country just because of the so-called solar terms, knowing you can't do it? Only by living can one have hope. Li Yuan continued. At this moment, a military general beside him directly cursed, Li Yuan, you greedy and afraid of death, how can you speak so grandly about the fear of death? As the saying goes, Death is small, but misconduct is great. Davis looked at the noisy civil officials and generals below, who were one and too big. I'm so worried. Who will save the Star Luo Empire? Next 4 schools, 4 Elements Academy. All their leaders gathered together to discuss the matter of the new Martial Soul Hall. During the defense of the Martial Soul Empire, after the death of the old leader of the Elephant Sect, Hu Yanjun, his son Hu Yanfeng took over his father's position. I think you should surrender. Hu Yanfeng proposed. One of the leaders immediately agreed, okay, then I will surrender to the Martial Soul Hall on behalf of the Wind Element Academy. Others were wavering and contemplating when they saw someone surrender. Someone asked, will surrender lead to annexation? It took my ancestors many years of hard work to accumulate this family fortune and establish a sect. I am afraid. Hu Yanfeng waved his hand and said, our Elephant Armor sect has long surrendered to the Martial Soul Hall and worked together to turn it into a Martial Soul Empire. If it weren't for Shrek School, how could our great Martial Soul Empire have been defeated back to the Martial Soul Hall? As you can see, our Elephant Armor sect's current development and annexation, you don't have to worry about it. The other leaders laughed one after another. I am willing to join the Martial Soul Hall. Yes, count me in. I'll come too. Even if we switch sides, we'll all be a family from now on. After hearing this, Yanfeng was very happy and said, okay, let me report it to the boss in a moment. Then please trouble Lord Huyan. A few others said. In just 3 days, some sects and forces on the mainland decided to follow the wind and surrender to the Martial Soul Hall. Of course, not all forces will be accepted. Among them, some small sects stood on the side of the 2 major empires in the Battle of Jialingwen. The surrender of these sects is not accepted. Of course, what is the most important thing now? Naturally, it will be the public trial conference 7 days later, which will judge Tang San. Su Yen sat on the golden seat of the Pope, taking a nap. The countdown to the judgment system in the Sea of Spirit lasted for 6 days and 14 hours. The target of the judgment was Tang San. This system was already bound when Su Yan arrived in Douluo continent, and the reward panel behind the system target has always been a mysterious gift box. I don't know what reward is inside. Su Yan now possesses the Supreme Ancestral Dragon and the Martial Soul of the Sky Opening Sword, with a soul ring ratio of 9 red and 1 gold, and 10 soul rings. There is also the most important Staff of Order, which has always managed the order beyond the divine realm. The next day, there were still 6 days left until the trial of Tang San. There was no movement between the 2 empires, and Su Yen was a bit curious. Do they plan to give up Tang San? And all the disciples and elders of the Martial Soul Hall are repairing the Martial Soul Hall and the Martial Soul City. Once the construction period is completed, the invincible Martial Soul Empire will rise again and revive. In the evening, Su Yen was bored and stood alone on top of the divine image of the 6-winged angel in front of the Martial Soul Hall. In the distance, an old man with a white beard, supported by 2 boys, trembled and came to the Martial Soul City. As soon as the 3 of them entered, people from the Martial Soul Hall immediately approached and surrounded them. The 2 boys were very nervous when they saw this scene, while the old man was unusually calm. He clenched his fists, hunched his body, and saluted the disciples of the Martial Soul Hall, saying, I have reason, old man. I want to see your Lord Su Yen. Can you please accommodate me? One of the disciples stepped forward and rebuked, Old man, my Lord Su, that's something you can see if you want to. Joke, I remember you're old, go back. The old man didn't give up at all, smiled slightly, and the wrinkles on his face became more obvious. It's okay, could you please inform me? I have an urgent matter, or rather, I'm here to save Mr. Su's life. Help. Urgent matter. Several disciples were stunned, unable to determine whether what the old man with white hair was saying was true or false. If it's fake, it's really nothing. It's true that if you're afraid, you'll be afraid. If it delays Lord Su Yan's affairs, the consequences won't be tolerable by the ordinary disciples of their martial soul hall. Is this a bit of a dilemma for both ends? The next second, a burst of blue soul power floated over, and Su Yan's voice mixed in with her ears. Let him in. A soul master with 2 rings, over 100 years old, can't do anything about me. Just now, Su Yan saw through the identities of the 3 of them at a glance. That old man with white hair is just a big soul master with 2 rings, and the remaining 2 young children are not even soul masters, just ordinary people. Are you still afraid of them playing tricks? Jokes. If they are really assassins and can be succeeded, then the God of Order doesn't have to mess around. The disciples bowed in the direction of Su Yan and said, "Yes, we'll listen." Then they pointed in the direction and said to the old man, "You go in." Looking up at the martial soul hall, the old man nodded and gestured. 2 young children immediately supported him, and the 3 of them walked towards Su Yan's direction. During the war, the martial soul city suffered severe damage, with broken bricks and tiles everywhere, walls and ruins, and almost no way to walk. The 3 of them spent almost an hour in ink before arriving at the martial soul hall. There is no one here except Su Yan. The old man looked up and saw the sunset still shining on Su Yan, stimulating his eyes. Looking at the 3 of them, Su Yan slowly spoke up, "Who are you? What are you looking for me for? If you're here to plead for Tang San, then there's no need. I'll stick to that sentence. At the trial meeting, everything should be based on evidence. If I violate fairness or cannot provide any evidence, I'll personally apologize to Tang San and let him go." Upon hearing these words, the old man gently stroked his white beard and smiled twice. "Ha ha ha, I, Lingwu Daoist, have met Mr. Su Yan." Taoist. Su Yan said, "Are you a cultivator?" The old man smiled and shook his head without answering his question. "Lord Su Yan, I'm here to save your life." Su Yan chuckled and said, "Save my life? Joke, who in this world can kill me? There are too many things that can kill you. Heaven can do it, earth can do it, God can do it, the sea can do it, your heart can do it." End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Has something to say. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 5, Debate 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5, Debate 2. Su Yan smiled and said, "Damn it, who do you think it is? I understand, it's just a lobbyist. Who asked you to come? On the Tiandou side, or on the Xinghua side? Or on the upper third sect?" Lingwu Taoist remained calm and said, "Excuse me, Lord Shangshan, are you going to kill me?" Although Su Yan's appearance is only in his 20s and extremely handsome, his actual age is already over 100 years old. Despite this, I still don't know what this old man really wants to do. "Kill you? No, I won't do it." When the old man heard Su Yan's words, he smiled slightly and lightly stroked his beard with his hand. With a smile on his face, he said, "I knew that Lord Su wouldn't kill me. After all, you are a god, why bother me as an old man?" Su Yan smiled silently, but cursed the old man repeatedly in her heart. It is indeed a cunning fox, despicable, so despicable. "You don't kill me, God, but someone wants to kill you," the old man said. Su Yan looked at him and said, "You, keep talking. I am the one who is going to kill you. It is all the people of the 2 empires and this is the heavenly way. Lord Su Yan, I know you have high strength, but if you can kill me, can you still kill all the people in this world? Can you kill your own demons? Can you kill the heavenly way?" The old man spoke word by word with both emotion and emotion, making a resounding sound. Su Yan suddenly understood that this was to persuade herself to let go. "And then what? You keep talking." The old man bent down and said with great righteousness, "Lord Su Yan, I beg you to let go of this world. Let go of the two empires, the Blue Hao King. I am willing to exchange my life with them for your anger and understanding. Su Yan sneered and said, Do you dare to ask Chang, are you old this year? The old man immediately replied, I am 127 years old this year. How long does it take to cultivate? It's been a whole 100 years. Upon hearing these words, Su Yan immediately roared, So, are you being a bit lenient? I'm here, poor Daoist. The old man still wants to argue. Close your stinky mouth, Su Yan angrily grabbed him and said, You, how should I say about you? You're over 100 years old, still getting involved in this kind of thing. Aren't you tired? I'm tired of poverty, but it's worth it. After all, this is to save all the people in the world. Okay, let me ask you, old man, where were you when the Martial Soul Hall was destroyed? Where were you when hundreds of thousands of soldiers were killed? Did you plead for them at that time? Did you say a fair word? Faced with Su Yan's questioning, the old man said, begging for mercy. The Martial Soul Hall itself is sick. Now that the two empires coexist peacefully, it is that it intervenes and disrupts the peace situation on the mainland. They are a group of war lunatics, causing many innocent people to lose their homes, wives and children. How could I plead for it in the face of such a situation? I wish the Martial Soul Hall were destroyed. After hearing this, Su Yan raised her right fist and was about to smash it, killing this damn old man. But at that moment of anger, Su Yan seemed to realize something. Mad, I almost fell for it. Su Yan, what are you? Do you think that once you become a god, you will become invincible? I tell you, you can kill me. There is no doubt about this, but can you kill people all over the world? The old man was not afraid of death and continued to anger Su Yan with his own words. Su Yan turned to smile, no longer showing any anger. She gently let the old man down and even adjusted his collar. Old man, how should I praise you? Are you praising you for being too smart? Or should I praise you for not risking your life? Upon hearing Su Yan's words, the old man's heart skipped a beat, but he still pretended to remain calm and deliberately asked, Su Yan, what do you mean by that? I don't understand. Su Yan turned around and paced back and forth in front of him, don't understand. Okay, let me talk about it. First of all, which faction are you from? I guess it should be from Tiandou. As for your simple purpose today, it's to use your own life to come and exchange something for something with me. The old man deeply suppressed his inner impulse and said, Lord Su Yan, tell me, what did I come to exchange for you this time, old man? Su Yan said, excuses, what you want to change is just an excuse. When I came to Douluo continent a few days ago, I once said, representing the name of justice, I judge all hypocritical and hypocritical people. The old man nodded and said, yes, the whole continent knows. But if I had just killed you, the consequences would have been different. When I tried Tang San, your life would have become my biggest obstacle. You just spoke fiercely, but I became an innocent person who indiscriminately killed. Yes, I could have killed all humans, but that was not my intention. I still said that, I am not an indiscriminate person, let alone a bloodthirsty person. So, you go. Don't repeat this kind of thing again, otherwise, the outcome will be very tragic. The old man looked at Su Yan, who always thought he was a person with great wisdom. Such a perfect plan is probably rare in the world. I didn't expect to be easily seen through here. The old man shook his head helplessly, turned around, and was about to leave. Su Yan took action and a beam of soul power flashed across the old man's arms. Prickle, 2 blood columns sprayed out directly, and then the old man only felt a burst of pain. Ah! He let out a roar, turned around to look at Su Yan, and said, You are so ruthless. Su Yan gave a devilish smile and said, I'm ruthless. So what? I can't kill you, but you think your so-called cleverness can be fearless. That's ridiculous. You can leave alive without paying any price. How could that be? Do you think this is a vegetable market? Come and leave if you want. The two Taoist children next to the old man quickly helped him and kept shouting, "Master, Master, are you okay?" The old man quickly used his soul power to seal the blood vessels and prevent himself from losing too much blood. "Okay, Su Yan, you're ruthless. I'll leave now. Two disciples, help me become a teacher." "Yes." The two Taoist children quickly took the old man away. At this moment, a blonde woman rushed out of the martial soul hall, with a graceful figure and delicate features. She was wearing a golden light gauze long dress and a pair of high heels. After jogging all the way, she arrived at Su Yan's side. Perhaps due to inconvenient shoes, she gasped for breath and her chest rose and fell, which was extremely tempting. "Lord Su Yan, I heard an abnormal voice, so..." Qian Renshue didn't finish speaking, but Su Yan shook her head and said, "It's okay, I just met an old man who thinks he's right and likes to play tricks." Upon hearing this, Qian Renshue immediately said, "Lord Su Yan, what should I do with him? Why don't I come forward and catch him back?" End of this chapter. Chapter 6, This is Torture. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6, This is Torture. Su Yan sighed and said, "No need, this kind of person doesn't need to have a common understanding. I also gave him a small punishment, which can be considered as calculating my price." After hearing this, Qian Renshue was slightly surprised and said, "Lord Su Yan, which old man is plotting against you? He's too brave." Su Yan sneered. "I said, don't talk about him anymore." This sentence frightened Qian Renshue. She stood in place, slightly lowered her head, and kept pondering with both hands, feeling a bit awkward as she had nowhere to place her. "You go down first." Su Yan spoke up. Qian Renshue slightly leaned forward, took a few steps back, and then turned around to leave. Su Yan turned around and looked at the towering six-winged angel statue, always feeling a bit eye-catching. "Qian Renshue, find someone to dismantle this statue and make one according to my style. I want the whole continent to appreciate my heroic figure." After hearing this, Qian Renshue turned around and nodded, "Yes, Lord Su Yan." Finally, Su Yan waved her hand, indicating that Qian Renshue could leave. A few minutes later, Su Yan turned around and looked at the entire martial soul city. The buildings here were almost completed, and the ruins on the street were also cleared. Su Yan doesn't know why. Looking at all of this, there is an indescribable sense of achievement in my heart. In short, I am particularly proud. There is no absolute right or wrong in this world. History is always written by the victors, and they can write whatever they want. This is something that no one can stop. Before crossing over, Su Yan had heard a sentence before. How to write history. Winning a rebellion is called a rebellion, an uprising. Rebellion and losing is called pacification, pacification. In the Douluo continent, the current self belongs to the victorious side, and as for how to punish the losers, of course, it is up to oneself to decide. Moreover, there are system rewards. Thinking of this, Su Yan turned around and left. After only a few breaths, she came to Tang San's side. He is very leisurely, sitting cross-legged alone, constantly muttering something in his mouth. Slowly opening his eyes, the afterglow of the sunset stimulated his eyes, causing them to unconsciously block the sunlight with their hands. A pair of legs appeared in Tang San's field of vision. Looking up, a handsome face caught his eye. Tang San slowly spoke up, "Su Yan, Lord Su, why do you have leisure to come to me today?" Su Yan chuckled lightly and said, "It's nothing, I just want to see how a dying person behaves." Tang San stood up, waved his azure sleeve, and dusted off the dust from his body. "On the brink of death. Yes, I was defeated. I lost. I didn't expect the Martial Soul Hall to leave a hand in the end. This time, I lost fairly. Su Yan looked at his expression, but felt a strong desire to laugh and said, "Are you saying you're not innocent? Who believes it? Your expression is too easy to betray you." Tang San sighed and said, "I don't feel wronged. It was me who lost, but I hate the hypocritical justice that you, an evil person, speak of. This is where I feel the most frustrated." Su Yan reached out and patted his shoulder, saying, feeling frustrated. "Do you deserve it? As a traveler, I don't know if you have heard such a sentence. It comes from an anime." Tang San was surprised and said, "A traveler? What do you mean?" "What do I mean?" Su Yan replied, "I knew it for 500 years before, but I pushed it back for 500 years. How could I not know your background?" Tang San's heart suddenly tightened, and he clenched his fists with both hands, secretly exerting force. Tang Sek's outer disciples, right? Su Yan didn't hide anything and directly revealed his identity. Tang San was surprised for half a day and couldn't say a word. His eyes were blurred, not knowing what he was thinking. "Don't daydream, Tang San, cherish your last quiet time here. As Su Yan said, I will provide evidence for every crime you have committed, and I will definitely convince you. Moreover, I will never give any false testimony, I disdain it. So, you can rest assured." After Su Yan finished speaking, there was no need to stay and she turned around just as she was about to leave. After only a few steps, Tang San behind him suddenly roared, "Su Yan, you can't do this to me. You, if you have the ability, you can kill me now. What 10 days later, you are. This is torture." Su Yan chuckled and secretly said to herself, "If it weren't for the time set by the system, I would have killed you long ago. Tang San, please be quiet for a while. As a sea god, you should have some dignity in the end, even if you die, you should be more dignified." Su Yan didn't even turn back, so she turned her back to him. After the two finished speaking, there was silence in the distance, and finally Su Yan walked straight forward with steps. "Su Yan, come back. Su Yan, Su Yan. Su Yan, I don't want to die. I have walked far away." What Tang San is saying, Su Yan can no longer hear it, and he is too lazy to know. Everything will be known on the day of judgment. When Su Yan walked away, only Tang San remained in the cage of divine power to repent. Why bother with so many things? God cannot interfere in the world. After becoming a god, one should stay away from human conflicts, which is the best strategy. As for war, is not the rise and fall of dynasties and the exchange of royal families the inevitable development of the mainland? Unfortunately, what's the use of regretting now? What's the use of it? Hey! How can there be regret medicine sold in the world? Unfortunately, Tang San understood this truth too late. In the distance, a pair of eyes stared tightly at this place, holding a pen and writing something rustling. After everything was over here, the mysterious shadow finally left. At the same time, the imperial palace of the heavenly Dou Empire felt a deathly silence pressing down on everyone's chest, making them very uncomfortable. At the door, a soldier suddenly arrived and said to the Avalanche, "I have seen your majesty." Then he said to Yu Xiaojiang, "I have seen a national teacher." Yu Xiaojiang nodded and said, "How are you? How is my disciple Tang San?" The soldier handed over the paper book in his hand, and the maid next to Avalanche quickly came down to catch it, then handed it over to Avalanche. The Avalanche flipped open and looked carefully for a few minutes before slamming the table with a fist. This Su Yan is too brave. The accomplice of the Martial Soul Hall, a despicable and shameless person who claims to be just, really means to say such things. Really, really shameless. Yu Xiaojiang also wanted to know what had happened. He walked up and Avalanche handed him the paper booklet, saying, "Master, you should take a look too." Yu Xiaojiang took it over and quickly looked at it, but he turned to laughing and congratulated the Avalanche repeatedly, "Your Majesty, the Empire is saved, the Empire is saved." An avalanche filled my mind with confusion, unable to understand its meaning. "National teacher, why are you congratulating? The Empire has been saved. What does this sentence mean? Do you have a way to defeat that Su Yan?" End of this chapter. Chapter 7, 7 Divine Realms. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7, 7 Divine Realms. Yu Xiaojiang nodded and said with confidence, "Well, Your Majesty, I have a clever plan. Although that Su Yan is powerful, when it comes to strategy and wisdom, I, Yu Xiaojiang, am capable of beating him for 100 streets." Upon hearing Yu Xiaojiang's words, the courtiers were all shocked. In just a few short minutes. Does the national teacher already have a plan to eliminate the enemy? Really? Handsome. The wisdom of the national teacher Yu Xiaojiang makes us admire and submit. After hearing this, Avalanche felt a little moved and seemed to have a hint of disbelief. "National teacher, what are your good strategies?" Yu Xiaojiang brought the paper booklet carried by the soldier in charge of supervision just now to the front of the Avalanche. "Your Majesty, please see that it is clearly written on it, recording the conversation between King Lan Hao and Su Yan." Avalanche nodded and said, "Yes, I know this too, but so what?" Yu Xiaojiang came up with a plan and began to explain, "Your Majesty, don't forget that when Su Yan came from another world, he specifically said that in order to avoid suspicion, he would not go to see the Blue Hao King for 10 days. But now, an avalanche is not a fool either." It immediately reacted and said, "National teacher, what do you mean?" Yu Xiaojiang said, "What I mean is, on the day of judgment, no matter what nonsense Su Yan says, we just need to seize this matter and say that he wants to use his strength or the lives of outsiders to coerce and force the Blue Hao King. In this way, the people's hearts will naturally turn towards us, and we will definitely win this battle without a fight. Avalanche, but there are some concerns. But, National Master, if you provoke him, maybe he will blood-wash the two empires. So what use are we doing this for?" A hint of wisdom flashed in Yu Xiaojiang's eyes and he said, "No, he doesn't. What did he come here for? He judges others, not the god of slaughter. It's a bit too tiring for him to destroy two empires. Moreover, there are more masters in the divine realm than just him. I believe the people in the sky won't let him do anything wrong." After hearing this, Avalanche said, "Heaven. National teacher, are you saying, the divine realm?" Yu Xiaojiang nodded and said, "Your Majesty, that's it. There will be sanctifiers in the divine realm to manage all of this, and there will be gods from the Douluo continent in the divine realm, as recorded in ancient texts. Even if those selfish gods let go of us, I don't believe that other gods will coldly watch their hometowns flow with blood. National teacher, I don't deny your wisdom. But is it too hasty to place the hope of the empire on some elusive people?" Upon hearing Yu Xiaojiang's words, Avalanche felt even more uncertain. "Your Majesty, don't worry. This is not illusory, but rules and their limitations. Sometimes even gods may not be able to change them." Yu Xiaojiang replied. "What should I do if my right hand supports my head in an avalanche? I just ascended to the throne, why did I end up in such a mess?" At the same time, in the divine realm. Old Sea God, Nine-Colored Goddess, Food God, Life God, Shura God, Wind God, War God, Phoenix God, Fire God, and so on. Nearly 30 people were sitting at a round table, seemingly preparing for a grand meeting. At the end, the Divine King slowly calmed down. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about it. There must be a solution to Su Yan's matter." The more than 30 people remained silent. The Divine King became a bit anxious and said, "Don't even remain silent." The Nine-Colored Goddess looked at the Divine King with some helplessness and said, "Your Highness, everyone knows about Su Yan. However, he comes from above, and our strength is limited, so we really can't control him. To put it bluntly, even if you go up and invite the next expert, you may not be able to suppress him. After hearing this, the fire god pondered and said, Sister Jyotsai, do you think it's beyond the divine realm? Everyone else's gaze was fixed on the nine-colored goddess. She nodded, admitting it. The god of life stood up and said, why bother having a fart meeting? I said at that time, don't interfere in human affairs. You must not listen to me one by one. Now things are better. Su Yen, the god of order, he has fought a battle in the super-divine realm and corruption. You must have all heard of it. Anyway, my descendant is not in the world of Douluo continent. You should watch for yourself. Maybe one day, they will start judging us here. After saying these words, Life stood up and prepared to leave. Brothers and sisters, there is nothing I can do about it. Fortunately, there is nothing I can do about it. Vulcan got up and ran after him directly. Life sister, wait for me. I don't know how lucky the fire god is now. Although the fat guy from the fire phoenix below has good talent, fortunately he didn't inherit his divine position. Otherwise, today. Hey. It's all a bunch of bad things. With a divine aura, he patted the table and said, let's go, let's all go. It's not related to Douluo continent, we can all leave now. It's really like a tree falling and a monkey scattering. When we first established the 7 divine realms, it sounded so difficult and pleasant. How can we unite and have one heart? Thinking about it now, it's all nonsense. More than 20 people dispersed in unison, and everyone knew that the powerful beyond the divine realm were not something that ordinary gods could compete with. Still, go as far as you can. The divine king is in a state of anxiety, and the affairs of Douluo continent cannot be controlled. Now, how to maintain the 7 divine realms is the top priority. At this moment, hearty laughter came in from outside. 2 people came, both women. A person wearing golden battle armor and carrying a golden judgment sword. The other person's appearance is mainly purple, holding a long black sickle tightly in their hand. The divine king saw the 2 of them and his face instantly changed. Angel, Rakshasa, are you 2 here in our 7 divine realms? The angel smiled and said, what's wrong? It's okay, we can't come and talk to Lord 7 divine kings. The divine king chuckled coldly and said, jokes, our 7 divine realms and your 6 divine realms do not cross the river, there is no hatred, but there is also no friendship. I know that the order of the super divine realm and the lower realm is to help the descendants of the 2 of you. What's wrong? Let's see the jokes in our 7 divine realms. The 2 of them looked at the dead mouse face of the 7 divine kings, feeling extremely pleased. Since they were not welcomed, they couldn't continue to stay here. Actually, the 7 divine kings are quite right. The 2 of them came here to see a joke. Who would have blamed the people of the 7 divine realms for not following the rules and rashly helping those in the lower realm, and now attracting the judgment of the God of Order? God, what is God? To put it bluntly, it's just a slightly stronger human. They may come from different time and space, different worlds, but when their strength directly breaks through world rules, reaches a height that humans cannot reach, and obtains permanent life. Becoming the immortal eternity. This is God. God. What is different from humans? No, basically not at all. Essentially, they are just humans. Nature also has human flaws. Greed, selfishness, ghostly lust, desire. So, God also has team divisions, and after tens of thousands of years of evolution, 10 major regions have gradually formed in the divine realm. From the 1st district divine king to the 10th district divine king. There is no distinction of size or height among the 10 divine kings. Or rather, these 10 regions are just 10 countries. In addition to gods of different levels, there are also divine officials, divine level guards, attendants, and the like. So, it's not wrong to say that their 10 major regions are 10 countries. Above them lies the supernatural realm, where the divine powers are immeasurable. If we compare the divine realm to the human realm, then the supernatural realm is the divine realm. However, I heard it's quite chaotic there, it's a chaotic and tumultuous area. And the god of order, Su Yan, came from there. As for why did he fight against the god of corruption? This is unknown. Anyway, there are different opinions. Some people say they want to steal disciples. Someone else said they were robbing women. Of course, it could also be for resources. The true situation may only be known by the two of them. 7 Divine Realms, Round Table Conference. Suddenly, around 20 people ran away, leaving only 7 of them. The old sea god, Phoenix, food god, 9-colored goddess, war god, speed god, and Shura. After all, their descendants are all in the lower world and their situation is very difficult. The divine needle of order may not be able to protect the lives of Shrek's 7 monsters. The 7 divine kings spoke up and said, "You 7, don't be fooled, come up with an idea." None of them spoke. In fact, apart from the old sea god, the 9-colored goddess, and the food god, everyone else doesn't matter. After the descendant is killed, it's best to replace him. And all 3 of them have intervened in Douluo continent, which is the most intolerable. The God of Order maintains the order of the divine and human realms, and there is absolutely a reason to take action against the 3 of them. Old Sea God felt a bit helpless. Tang San had already become a god and had already completed the affairs of the human world. He could then fly up in place and enter the divine world to take over all of Old Sea God's affairs. Who would have thought that Su Yan's move shattered Tang San's divine position, resulting in the cancellation of all 9 Sea God exams in front of him. In addition to the Sea God, the assessment of the Shura God has also been abolished, but at least the Shura has a small dance. Now, most of us are back to understanding before putting it. The inheritors of these 7 great gods have basically received 0 assessment, and now everyone is starting together. The 7 divine kings let out a sigh of relief and said, "What are you going to do? Are you going to give it a try and fight against order? Or is it to cut ties and never touch the lower world again?" The 7 of them are still speechless. Finally, the little sister of the god of speed suggested, if the people in the super divine realm cannot move, why not temporarily give up passing on? If everything is okay in the future, everyone will start the assessment again. If anything happens, let's discuss with the order and it should not affect our 7th area, right? After hearing this, the other 6 people nodded one after another. Speed sister is right. Okay, let's do it this way. Good idea. The 7 divine kings said, "Everyone, be quiet. Do you mean you agree with the statement of the god of speed?" End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Lingwu Daoist Suicide. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Lingwu Daoist Suicide. The other 6 people are really at the end of their rope, and there is really no other way besides agreeing. After hearing this, the 7 divine kings gently rubbed their temples with their right hand. One word, sorrow. Okay, that's it. I'll try my best to find a way to get in touch with the super divine realm and see if I can handle this matter. Be careful lately, don't get involved in the Douluo continent for now. It's best to avoid this matter. The 7 of them stood up and said in unison, "Thank you, Lord Shenwang." The divine king waved his hand and said, "You guys, let's go." 7 people left, and the divine king looked up at the sky, feeling helpless. "Sister Zoe, I finally came to beg you. I hope you don't hold grudges for what happened back then." Thinking of this, he stood up, transformed into a beam of light, flashed out of the window, and disappeared in a few moments. A week later, in the Douluo continent, at the entrance of the Martial Soul Hall, the statue of Su Yan had been erected. The stone was specifically found in the sea and was made of the same material as the night pearl. At night, it could emit a light blue light. And its creator is a Soul Douluo level carving expert in the Martial Soul Hall, and also one of the members of the army that Su Yan revived in the martial soul hall. When the powerful soul warrior learned that he was creating a stone statue for Lord Su Yan, he could be said to be quite shocked. Therefore, I spent all my energy in this life just to make Su Yan's stone statue perfect. The first step is to start with selecting stones. Firstly, we must not use materials such as gold, platinum, or silver that are contaminated with copper odor, as this will only tarnish the influence of Lord Su Yan. So, after a whole day of contemplation, he finally decided to use sea fluorite, and then found an elder named Douluo to help him find this sea fluorite on a small island in the vast sea. Finally, it was moved back into the martial soul city and carved for a full 50 hours before it was completed. After all, as the new pope of the martial soul hall, Su Yan deserves such honor. Looking at his magnificent statue, Su Yan was filled with joy. He had been practicing for half a life, and it was only then that he reached a height that he rarely achieved. Now, in the chaos of the supernatural realm, he and the corrupting god fought for 5 years to seize control of the throne. In the end, we ended up in a win-win situation. I wandered here and bound the system, which not only allowed me to recover well, but also allowed me to complete system tasks and receive some rewards. Sanlai can effectively unveil the mask of those hypocritical people, allowing the balance of fairness and justice to transcend the human realm. As for the god of corrosion, I don't know where he went. However, it can be confirmed that he is currently not in Douluo continent. As for why Su Yan is so certain, it is natural that when Su Yan first arrived here, he had already used his powerful divine-level spiritual power, that is, divine consciousness, to roughly scan the Douluo continent. I did not discover the same divine power as myself. So, it can be certain that the spatial vortex generated by his confrontation with the god of corruption did not lead them into the same world. I don't know where he went either. Forget it, don't think about him anymore. Hurry up and recover from your injuries. When you return to the divine realm one day, you must kill that guy alive in order to relieve the hatred in your heart. There are still those wall grass who act recklessly, and when they unify the super-divine realm, they will eventually clean up together. However, this road is a long and arduous one. In the Tiandou Palace, Avalanche, the national teacher Yu Shaojiang, and various civil and military officials would discuss Su Yan's affairs in the court almost every day. Early that morning, Avalanche suddenly thought of Lingwu Daoist. Lingwu Daoist has been gone for almost a week now, why hasn't there been any news yet? His strength is weak, is he confident in persuading Su Yan to give up? Upon hearing Your Majesty's question, a civil servant below leaned forward and bowed to the Avalanche, saying, Your Majesty, there should be no problem. Lingwu Daoist is one of the few masters of the Tao in the world. There were rumors that he had extraordinary talents, but later it seemed that he had seen through all things in the world, so he gave up the opportunity to become a strong person, thus gaining insight into the world and transcending the mundane. After listening to the Avalanche, he became a bit impatient and said, You just keep hearing rumors and rumors every day, can't you be more accurate? After hearing this, the minister immediately knelt down and said, Your Majesty, it was my mistake. I am willing to accept death as an apology. The Avalanche really cursed these old ministers all over, constantly threatening them to death, it's really annoying. However, I couldn't do anything about them. Forget it, step back. Upon hearing the words of the Avalanche, the old minister immediately knelt down and said, Thank you, Your Majesty, for not killing. Then he got up and returned to the team. At this moment, a young eunuch hurriedly ran in and shouted, Your Majesty, Lingwu Daoist has returned, Lingwu Daoist has returned. This sound brought the lifeless Qiaotang back to life in an instant. Leaving aside the rest, it is already remarkable that Lingwu Daoist can still fully retreat from the tiger's den alone, thanks to his 2-ring strength. But the next moment, they couldn't laugh anymore. The 2 little boys who had been following Lingwu Daoren walked in carrying a stretcher, which was covered with white cloth, and a figure could be vaguely seen. Above the court, it was incredibly quiet. It goes without saying that the person on the stretcher is probably Lingwu Daoist. The joy just now disappeared immediately, and Avalanche stood up and questioned the two Daoist children, "What's wrong with your master? Did you get killed by the people of the Martial Soul Hall?" The two Daoist children shook their heads together and said in unison, "No, master committed suicide." The Avalanche immediately descended from the throne and arrived in the middle of the hall, next to the body of Lingwu Daoist, saying, "Show me." The two Daoist children looked at each other, crouched down, and pulled apart their master's white cloth. Lingwu Daoist walked very peacefully, with only no blood on his face, nothing different from a normal person. The Avalanche naturally saw his shoulder and said, "What is the condition of his arms?" One of the children replied, "Your Majesty, it was Su Yan who did it. He cut off his master's arms and then let us leave. The two of us quickly found a doctor for our master, and it took us 2 days and 2 nights to save his life. Then when the master woke up, he cried and said that he had not completed the task, worthy of your Majesty's trust." "So?" Avalanche questioned, "So what?" "So, master secretly used his soul power to break his heart pulse and went away alone." Woo woo woo. After the little Daoist finished speaking, there was a mournful howl above the hall. The same goes for Avalanche. Lingwu Daoist, although we are not familiar with each other, in the midst of national crisis, you have already defeated us high-level soul masters by standing up and arguing with the tiger. End of this chapter. Chapter 9, Tiandou Internal Riots. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9, Tiandou Internal Riots. The Avalanche was extremely sad, and it can be said that all hope was placed on him, but the result was like this. Hey! Fate plays tricks on people. The Avalanche looked at the departed Lingwu Daoist and ordered, "Someone, let's bury Lingwu Daoist. Tomorrow at this time, the whole country mourns for him." The civil and military officials on both sides bent down at the same time, as a farewell to him. "Yes, your Majesty. Step back. I'm tired today." After everyone goes back, think about how to deal with the Martial Soul Hall and Su Yan. If you have any good ideas, don't report them, just come to me. On behalf of all the people of Tiandou, thank you all. Yes, I'm leaving. In Tiandou City, there is a secret room in the home of an old minister. 3 people, 2 old men with white beards. The third person held a sword in his right hand, full of energy, and sat beside him. There is a strong fluctuation of soul power throughout the body, and the strength is not bad. It is probably a 4-ring soul sect. The remaining 2 are both ordinary people, over 50 years old and in their prime. "General Sun, what are you doing with the 2 of us?" one of them asked. General Sun spoke directly, "Mr. Wang, I have brought you and Mr. Wei over, so naturally we have important matters to discuss." Upon hearing this, Lord Wei turned his head and exchanged a glance with Lord Wang. Then he spoke up and asked, "General Sun, I'm not sure. Do you have anything to discuss with us?" General Sun calmly replied, "What's going on? Aren't you 2 adults clear about it yet? Now that the Martial Soul Hall has been resurrected and a divine king has arrived, do you think our heavenly Dou Empire still has a chance under such circumstances? What does General Sun mean?" Mr. Wang deliberately pretended to be confused and didn't understand his intentions. General Sun sat down straight down and slammed his long sword onto the table, saying, "2 adults, don't you understand what I'm saying? What I mean is that Tiandou belongs to their Shui family, and our destiny is ours." After hearing this, Lord Wei was a bit excited and said, "General Sun, be careful with your words. This is rebellion, it is treason." General Sun directly drew his long sword and plunged it into the table in front of the 3 of them, saying, "Treason. This is not right." Upon seeing General Sun like this, Lord Wei was immediately frightened and at a loss, afraid to speak. "I'm a rough person, I don't know how to say so many grandiose words. In just one sentence, I'm not willing to work for the Shui family anymore." Would you two be willing to follow me? Lord Wei and Lord Wang dare not say a word, neither agree nor disagree. Agree or disagree, give me a precise answer. I don't have that much patience. General Sun doesn't have that much time to talk nonsense with the two of them, so he directly interrogates them. After weighing their options, the two adults finally decided to temporarily agree. After all, if you don't agree immediately, you will die at any time. Although treason is also a capital offense, we will discuss this matter in the future and it is not urgent now. General Sun withdrew his long sword and inserted it back into its sheath, saying, "Then I can rest assured, gentlemen. Could you please sign your name here and press your fingerprint?" After speaking, General Sun took out a list, on which many names had been written one after another, with red fingerprints on each name. "If I sign this, I really can't turn back." Wang and Wei were still hesitating. General Sun said coldly, "What's wrong? Your Excellency, have you regretted it?" Wang and Wei looked at General Sun with a murderous aura and could only sigh, "Hi. General Sun, let's sign." Under duress and helplessness, the two of them could only sign and press their fingerprints. The two of them took care of everything and returned the list to General Sunday. General Sun carefully looked at it and burst out laughing, "Ha ha ha, both adults are also knowledgeable about current affairs. From now on, you two and I will be like grasshoppers on a rope. Someone, bring over the families of the two elders and settle them with me for the time being. We must take good care of them." After hearing this, the guard at the entrance of the secret room accepted the order and went down to do it. Wang, Wei and his companions did not expect that this old grandson still had this skill, clearly taking their family members as hostages. Now, the three of them are really tied together. Tiandou Empire Palace, Avalanche Residence. A powerful Soul King with a black figure flew in directly and arrived at the residence of the Avalanche. Upon seeing the Avalanche, he half knelt and saluted, "Yes, Your Majesty the Emperor." Avalanche waved his hand and asked seriously, "How did your investigation go?" The person replied, "Your Majesty, now all the civil and military ministers of the Manchu dynasty are in a state of confusion and disregard, and even." Avalanche looked bitter and said, "Even what? Tell me. What's worse in this situation now? Even, many people are starting to prepare their own paths." Avalanche question. Back road. What does that mean? Some people are preparing to rebel or surrender to the enemy, in short. The detective thought that the Avalanche Emperor would be very angry, but what he didn't expect was that the Emperor just silently shook his head and said, "Forget it, let's not care about them. At this point, everyone wants to survive. Yes, I'm leaving." Avalanche looked at the scout and sincerely said, "If you don't want to stay here, go to the Martial Soul Hall. You come from a commoner and it's not easy to cultivate the 5 rings. At least you can survive after passing by." The detective immediately knelt down and said, "Your Majesty, I am loyal to Tiandou and will never leave." Avalanche shook his head and said, "I'm not joking. You can leave if you want. I don't want to watch Tiandou's blood flow like a river. It's all that damn Su Yan, he turns right and wrong, doesn't care about black and white, hey. Heaven has no eyes." The Avalanche sighed and said, "Oh. There's nothing we can do. When we destroyed the Martial Soul Hall, we never softened our hearts. How dare we now expect forgiveness? In the struggle of great powers, there will be countless deaths and injuries. This is so. I can't blame anyone else, let's go down. I want to rest for a while. Yes, I'm leaving." After the scout finished speaking, he left here. After thinking for a moment, Avalanche stood up and said to the maid beside him, "Change my clothes." "Yes." Several close-fitting maids immediately took out another set of clean and lightweight clothes and put them on for the Avalanche. Avalanche looked at the bronze mirror and asked them, "Tell me, am I a good emperor?" "Where have those maids seen Your Majesty ask such a question before?" They immediately praised and said, "Your Majesty, of course you are a good emperor." Hey! To be honest, I don't blame you anymore at this moment. But the maids still insisted, "Your Majesty is a good emperor. We have always believed in this way and it has never changed." Avalanche shook his head and said, "What kind of good emperor am I? I can't even protect my own subjects. This time, the Tiandou Empire may not escape the fate of annihilating the country." End of this chapter. Chapter 10, Avalanche seeks to see Su Yan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10, Avalanche seeks to see Su Yan. The remaining maids were so frightened that they dared not speak, so they could only bend their bodies as much as possible, fearing that an accidental incident would anger the Avalanche. After all, this was the time when His Majesty the Emperor was restless. You can't hit the muzzle at this time. Forget it, what's the point of talking to you about these things? Get up. Everyone go to the ceremonial supervisor to collect some gift money, and then go home. The avalanche has already been planned, and this disaster is likely to be difficult to avoid. So it's best to dismiss the maids around you, there's no need to follow you to death. After putting on his clothes, Avalanche stood up and calmly tidied up his appearance, facing the bronze mirror. Representing the heavenly Dou Empire, there must be no negligence or mistake. The imperial palace was very large, and not many people had seen the Emperor Avalanche. He bypassed the inner courtyard alone and arrived at the front courtyard of the palace. After deceiving a few guards, he left the place where he had been imprisoned for half his life alone. There are only 2 short days left until the initial 10-day period, and the day after tomorrow will be the day of judging Tang San. Although national teacher Yu Xiaojiang suggested using some Shura god to fight against, Avalanche had no confidence in his heart. Lan Hao Wang Tang San has been imprisoned by divine power for a full 8 days, and there is still no intention of coming out. The Avalanche and these people couldn't get close to Tang San, and they didn't even have anyone to deliver a message. Only a few days ago, the Dou guards secretly observed from afar. But Avalanche knew that the guards he had sent to observe might have already been discovered. But on the other side of the Martial Soul Hall, there is Su Yan who doesn't even know how to do these small actions. After all, in the eyes of others, I am just an ant, tossing and turning, and I can never change my fate. Why bother with so much meddling? Anyway, the results are all the same. Ants can't change anything. The Wuhuan city is not close to here, and the avalanche arrived outside the city and bought a carriage to set off at full speed. Although the avalanche is not strong enough, it is also the 5-ring soul king, and it still possesses the swan martial soul inherited by their snow family. Although it cannot be said to be a relatively powerful type of flying martial soul, it is an absolute leader in terms of flying speed. He drove the carriage alone, leaving the bustling city and arriving at the quiet countryside path. After getting off the carriage, he fully opened his martial soul and flew towards the direction of the martial soul city. At the same time, several ministers jointly petitioned to discuss the matter of the martial soul hall with His Majesty again. At this moment, they realized that the avalanche had already gone somewhere. The old ministers were in a hurry and kept searching inside the palace, but still found nothing. This news has been temporarily suppressed by Yu Xiaojiang. After all, the emperor has disappeared. If the subjects and civil and military ministers know about it, it will lead to the disintegration of the national military morale. Then we will really break through without attacking. Yu Xiaojiang's biggest concern is actually that he is afraid that the avalanche will be captured by the people of the martial soul hall. If the emperor is used as a threat, their heavenly Dou Empire will really come to an end. But when I think about it in the blink of an eye, it's not necessary. If it had been placed before, the martial soul hall would have likely used this move. But now that Su Yan is such a powerful deity, what's the use of these small actions? The second point is that the avalanche is a risk of risking one's life, and it is very likely that they secretly slipped away in order to survive. Although it may seem shameless, Yu Xiaojiang can understand human nature. In short, the best way now is to first suppress the news and never leak it. Secondly, what about it? Just send someone out quickly to search, make sure to bring the Avalanche back and oversee the overall situation. After spending a whole day on the road, the Avalanche finally arrived at the Martial Soul City. At this time, he was already hungry and ragged. The world is in chaos now, and I have encountered many mountain bandits on my way here, but after all, I am a subject of Tiandou. The Avalanche is just a lesson and I did not kill anyone. When I first ascended the throne, although the Martial Soul Hall established the Martial Soul Empire, it did not break ties with the two empires. So on the surface, it was still the era of the Three Kingdoms, which was full of joy and harmony. In addition, when I first ascended the throne and implemented some livelihood policies, the people at that time were truly homeless and never closed their doors at night. Everyone has food to eat and soup to drink. This is only a few short years. The arrival of a god has brought more fear to the mainland and the people than the influence of Su Yan. And this time I am looking for him to protect all my subjects. I hope he won't refuse. The Avalanche also brought a lot of money along the way, sometimes providing relief to the common people. In the end, there wasn't much left here. I found a shop in the Martial Soul City, bought a clean outfit, took a shower, and had some food. After everything was sorted out, he walked towards the Martial Soul Hall. Nowadays, the entire Martial Soul City is full of people's livelihood, and the streets and alleys are basically the joyful words of the people. Comparing the bandits and thieves within the Tiandou Empire, one can easily distinguish who is higher and who is lower at a glance. As long as Su Yan is good to the people, it's not impossible to entrust his own miserable life to him. The Avalanche thought to itself. In front of the Martial Soul Hall, there are 3 rows of soldiers and armor guards composed of 2 ring soul masters, each full of energy and leaking deadly intent, focusing on protecting the Martial Soul Hall from being damaged by others. This is just in front of the Martial Soul Hall. After crossing the 3 layers of armor guards, there are long and high steps. Every 20 steps are guarded by a middle-aged man, all dressed in plain clothes and not fond of extravagance. If an ordinary person looks at them, they will definitely feel that these middle-aged men are not worth mentioning compared to the guards outside holding weapons and wearing armor. As an avalanche that can serve as a soul master, one can naturally feel the majestic soul power on each middle-aged man above. I'm afraid their strength is above the 5th or even 6th ring. Among them, on the huge stone statue of Su Yan in the Martial Soul Hall, sat an old man who was over 50 years old, with a disheveled and extremely casual head. This old man is the most terrifying among this group of people. Just a glance at him from Avalanche made him already flustered, and he even couldn't control his martial soul and soul power. My strength is probably among the ranks of the title Douluo. The current Martial Soul Hall is guarded day and night by a title Douluo. Even if 2 imperial soldiers are together, it is difficult to invite top experts to sneak attack. If they are not detected, it will be very difficult. It seems that the Martial Soul Hall has gained the experience of the previous war, and this time they have made full confidence, imagining every possible situation and making corresponding strategies. The captain of the Bingjia Guard saw an avalanche and came with his sword. He politely said, "If there is nothing wrong with this gentleman, please leave as soon as possible. In this special period, if there is a conflict, it may accidentally harm you." Upon hearing Captain Wei's words, Avalanche tidied up the collar of his clothes and said in a gentle and serious tone, "Captain Wei, I want to see Lord Su Yan. I really have something important to tell him. Could you please report it to me and let me in?" The captain of the guard did not immediately believe his words, but carefully examined the Avalanche and said, "May I ask, sir, whose surname and name are you? Where do you live?" The Avalanche revealed the emblem of the imperial family of the Tiandou Empire. "I am the current emperor of the Tiandou Empire." "Avalanche, if you have anything to do, please report it to Lord Su Yan." After hearing this, the captain of the guard immediately drew his long sword and pointed it directly at the throat of the avalanche. Suddenly, he ordered, "Brothers, catch him for me." The remaining guards heard the captain give orders and immediately surrounded the avalanche with spears in hand. The 5 or 6 ring soul masters above, as well as the elder with the title Douluo, naturally saw this. The elder stood up and a gentle breeze blew over his cheeks, blowing his long hair high and giving him a unique look. The elder lifted his foot and jumped, and the next second he appeared in front of the avalanche. The guards around were a bit startled when they saw the elder approaching, but as the 2 ring soul masters and the guards of the Forbidden Army, they naturally received strict training. In less than 2 seconds, they returned to their previous appearance. The elder spoke softly, "Are you the Avalanche Emperor?" Avalanche nodded and said, "Elder, I am Avalanche, the current emperor of the Heavenly Dou Empire." The elder circled around the avalanche, carefully examining the young man in his 30s, and then slowly spoke up, "Your Majesty, don't you know that our martial soul hall and your Heavenly Dou Empire are currently at odds, openly and secretly fighting? If you come over now, you won't be afraid of me taking action to kill you. I believe this is a great achievement. Avalanche is a bit fearless. If the subjects and people of the Tiandou Empire can survive, I voluntarily stand here and be killed by Elder Gu." The elder smiled with great interest, as if he didn't believe the words of the avalanche. "Really?" Avalanche nodded and said, "Every word I say is true. If you don't believe it, then I have no choice." The elder waved his hand and withdrew the other guards, leaving only himself. "Why do you think that Lord Su Yen will meet you?" Avalanche shook his head and said, "I'm not sure if I'm certain, but I must see Lord Su Yen because I have a problem, or rather a request." The old man thought for a moment and said, "Leave Tang-san alone." Su Yen nodded and said, "If possible, that would be best." The old man smiled again and shook his head, "I can answer you now. It's impossible. When Tang-san killed my martial soul hall, did he ever soften his heart? When my million-strong army was tormented by the poison of Dugubo, did you plead for us? Now that you're here, don't you feel like you're too double-standard?" After hearing the avalanche, there was nothing to refute. After all, the fact is indeed so. I want to give it a try. Or, exchange my life for the people of my Heavenly Dou Empire. If that's really the case, then I'll die without regret." The old man shook his head and looked at the man in his 30s, as if he admired him a bit. "That's all for now. Don't say anything. Hurry back now and leave here before everyone finds you. If you really want to survive, listen to my advice and keep your relationship with Tang-san as close as possible. Maybe you can still leave one life behind. Now, you go." This old man's cultivation to the title Douluo is only recent. Although he has superb strength, he is not a bloodthirsty person, and his martial soul leans more towards control and assistance. And he sympathized to some extent with the avalanche. "No, I won't leave here until I see Su Yen." At this moment, the avalanche is a bit stubborn, even a bit stubborn. Other people in this situation naturally tend to skim as cleanly as possible, but this avalanche is truly a shameless move, risking their lives. "Avalanche, old man, I'm kind enough to save your life. Don't be ignorant. This title Douluo has a bad temper." Faced with such a helpless and stubborn donkey, he started preaching directly. "I am very grateful to my senior, but I must see Su Yen today, so please don't stop me. Although I am not strong, I have a stubborn personality. Either my senior killed me here today, or I will go in to see Su Yen today." As soon as the words of the avalanche fell, he lifted his leg and rushed towards the martial soul hall. The old man was a bit irritable, and his soul power was activated, forming a huge pressure that enveloped the avalanche. At that moment, the avalanche felt as if a pair of invisible hands were pressing against him, making him unable to straighten up and walk. Kushuabong is a stubborn person who releases his martial soul, with 5 soul rings appearing. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, and black. White wings extended from behind him, and after the martial soul was possessed, the pressure of the avalanche was much less. He struggled to reach out his right foot and slowly arrived at the bottom of the stone ladder, starting to walk up step by step. Every step he took was a huge torture for him, but after 5 or 6 steps, he was already sweating profusely from the avalanche. Bean-sized sweat dripped onto the stone steps, but the avalanche still persisted and continued to move forward. The old man was completely angry and went forward to grab him, throwing him fiercely to the ground. Then he grabbed the collar of the avalanche and deliberately lowered his voice, saying, "Those who are looking for death, don't go forward any further. If you go forward any further, you will really die. Lord Su Yan is in the hall behind you, and he knows exactly what you are doing here. That adult is not something you can move with just 1 or 2 words of sincerity. Listen to my words, turn around and leave here quickly. Maybe you can still live. If you want to go forward again, you will definitely die 100%. I will definitely not save you when the time comes." After listening to the avalanche, he looked at the old man in front of him with a slight smile and thanked him, "Senior, thank you for telling me so much. But I really have something to do with Su Yan. Please don't stop me. I thank you again, thank you." After listening to this sentence, the old man wanted to confirm again. "Avalanche, are you serious?" The avalanche was almost unstoppable, panting heavily, but nodded firmly. "I said, I must see Su Yan. Please don't stop me, thank you." The old man instantly removed the pressure from his body and bowed to the martial soul hall behind him, saying, "Lord Su Yan, you are indeed right. His Majesty, named Avalanche, is indeed a person who can bend and stretch, and also a person with extraordinary perseverance." Then the old man turned around and looked at the avalanche. "Avalanche, the test of the plain adult on you has ended. Now you can go in." End of this chapter.